Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This is part 62 of SQL Server video series. In this video, we will discuss about what to choose for performance, subqueries or joins. Let's flip to SQL Server Management Studio. I have two tables here, TBL products and TBL product sales tables. In TBL products table, I have got around 400,000, and in TBL product sales table, I have got 600,000 records. I have inserted this huge amount of data into these tables using automated SQL script. We have discussed about how to do that in the previous session of this video series. If you have not watched that, I would strongly encourage you to do so before continuing. With this session. Now, according to MSDN, in most cases, there is usually no performance difference between queries that uses subqueries and equivalent queries that are formed using joins. Let's understand this with an example. Let's flip to SQL Server Management Studio. Now let's say we want to write a query which lists the list of all products that we have sold at least once. Let's say I want ID, name, and descriptions. So how do we write that query? So look at this, select ID, name, description from TBL products table, where ID in, select product ID from TBL product sales table. So if the ID is present in TBL product sales table, then we know for sure we have sold that product. In which case we are retrieving ID, name, and descriptions. Okay. Now if you look at this query, is formed using a subquery. Okay, now let's go ahead and execute this query and see how long is that going to take. So I am executing now. So execute this query. So So I am executing now. It is executing. See the timing. It is completed in 4 seconds. So it should take around 4 seconds. It actually taking around 4 seconds to complete. Look at this. How many rows we have? How many rows we have? 310,729 rows. In how much time? It took around 4 seconds. Okay. So 4 seconds, and we have 310,729 rows. Okay, now let's see how to form the same query but using joins. Now I want the same result, but I want to do that using join. So if you look at this here, we are selecting the product ID. We are selecting the product ID, name, and description from TBL products table. By joining with TBL products sales table on the common column. What is the common column? ID in TBL products and product ID in TBL product sales table. And we are using distinct keyword. Here because for every match we get a row from the left table. So but we don't want duplicate, so we are using distinct keyword there. So let's me go ahead and run this, but before running this we want to clear the query cache. So this query has taken how much time? 4 seconds. 4 seconds. And how many rows it retrieved within 4 seconds? 310,729. Okay. So now before running this query, we want to clear the query cache. Otherwise this query cache is going to impact the numbers that we get. Okay. So let me drop this query cache. So execute this. Okay, so what is this query cache? When we execute a query execution plan will be generated. We don't want that plan to be reused, just to make sure that our performance testing numbers All right. All right. So I'm cleaning that query cache and the execution plan cache here. Okay. So once we have done that, now let's go ahead and run this. So run this. And see how long this will actually take to run. So execute this. So it is still executing and it took around 3 seconds. So this has also, there is the difference. The join has taken less time than the subquery, but it retrieved the record around 310, the same records. Oh, this means joins are faster than the subqueries in the performance wise. So it took 3 seconds. And the number of rows it retrieved the same, 310, 310,729. So here we clearly see that the joins performance is better than the subqueries. So if you use subquery or whether you are using a join, it is not really making a difference. Little bit of difference is there, only marginal, 1 second. Okay. But in some cases, again, this is present on MSDN. In some cases, where existence must be checked, a join produces better performance. Otherwise, the nested query must be processed for each result of the outer query. In such cases, a join approach would yield better result. Let's understand this with an example. Look at this here. Now let's say I want to retrieve all the product. So go back to the SQL Server Management Studio. Look at this here. Now let's say I want to retrieve all the products which we have not sold at least once. Okay. How do we write that? Using a subquery. Look at this. We are doing that using a subquery here. Select ID, name and descriptions from EBL's products. where not exist, where not exist. Remember the exist function. Remember the exist function. This exist function will actually returns true or false. Okay. When will it return true? If there is, if this query, if this query inside the parenthesis, if this query returns at least one row, then it is going to return true. Otherwise, this exist function is going to return false. And look at the subquery here. And look at the subquery here. Select star from TBL product sales table where product ID is equal to TBL products dot ID. Now, if you look at this query, it is a correlated subquery. And we have discussed about correlated subqueries in the previous sessions of this video series. If you have not watched that, I would strongly encourage you to do so. Okay, now look at this. This query will now have to be executed for every row that is retrieved by the outer query. So in this case, look at this. According to MSDN, in some cases where existence must be checked. So here we are checking for the existence using exists keyword. And now, here the nested query must be processed for each result of the outer query. In this case, a join approach would yield better results. Let's see if that is the case. So here, since the inner query the inner query, that is our subquery, has to be executed for every row that is produced by the outer query. A join would have actually produced a better result. That is what MSDN says. But let's see what actually happens when we execute this query. Let's see how long it is going to take. Before that, let's clean the query cache and execution plan, and let's go ahead. So first we will clean the query cache. And let's go ahead. and execute this query. So let's see how many seconds is this going to take. So execute it. So it is going to take only 1 second, and query is executed successfully. So it has taken, the subquery has taken around 1 second. Look at this, we have got 89,271 records. Okay. So so 4 second, I mean to say 1 second. Here it is 1 second. The query executed within 1 second. 1 second, and the record it retrieved is around 89,271 records. Okay. So that's it, what the number of rows retrieved. Now we have an equivalent query but formed using joins. So we are retrieving ID, name, descriptions from TBL products. We are doing left join with the TBL product sales table on the common column, which is ID in TBL products table and product ID in TBL product sales table. And look at this. We are saying where TBL product sales dot product ID is null. Okay. Now we have discussed about joins and intelligence joins again in this video series. If you don't know how to do that, please watch those videos before proceeding with this video. So this left join with this check. So this left join with this check where table product sales dot product ID is null. This is going to return all the non-matching rows from the left join. In this case, from TBL products table. So we are going to get a list of products that we have not sold at least once. So let me go ahead and execute this query. See how many seconds is this going to take. So execute this query. It also took around 1 second. So it took 1 second. Look at this, it actually took 1 second. Okay, so the join here actually produced within 1 second. And look at this, it retrieved 89,271 records or rows. Now I'm not sure if we have deleted the cache. Let's go ahead and delete the cache and run that query again. So delete the cache and run the query once again. Let me try this now. Now let's execute this. Okay. Look at this now. So execute this. Again, it took 1 second. Okay. So the join has actually executed in 1 second and it has given me the same number of rows, 89,271 records or rows. Okay. One second. 89,271 rows or records. Okay. Now let me again clear the cache. Let's execute this query. So execute this query. Once again, that uses subquery and see what is going to happen. This time it took 2 seconds to retrieve 89,271 rows. Two seconds to retrieve 89,271 records after clearing the cache. And this join took only 1 second. And same rows, same number of rows. Okay, actually, I have tested this several times, but though here, this query, this query is actually checking for existence, and this query is executed every time, and this query is executed every time for the outer query. It actually produced the same amount of time. No, not the same number of time. It is more than 1 second in comparison to joins on my machine. Look at that, 2 seconds. 89,271 records. And even the query that uses join has taken less time, around 1 second. producing the same result. Now, what does MSDN says? Now, but what does MSDN says? According to MSDN in some cases, where existence must be checked, a join produces better performance. Otherwise, the nested query must be processed for each result of the outer query. In such cases, a join approach would yield better results. But our test proved that the same. Joins has performed better than the subquery. Though they produce the same result, 89,271 rows, but one took 2 seconds and other joins took only 1 second. Okay, so joins are better than subquery in the performance terms. That is because in general, if you look at this, in general, if somebody asks you in an interview which is better for performance, joins or subqueries, in general it is actually joins. Joins are much faster than subquery. But in reality, it all depends on the execution plan that is generated by the SQL server. It does not matter how we have written the query. Did we use subqueries or did we use joins to write that query? It does not really matter because SQL server will always transfer that query based on an execution plan. If it is smart enough, and if the SQL server generate the same plan for both the queries, then we are going to get the same result, and that what is exactly happening here. Now, though I might have written this query using a subquery, SQL Server has actually transformed it, to, produce an execution plan, which is same as that of, the query that uses joins. That is why I am getting the same result, but there is little difference in timing, though only 1 second difference. Let me run this once again. Let me run this once again. So clear the cache first. But if does not produce the same result, then definitely in that case a join will be much better. So execute this. So execute this. In general, that is a common notion. You know, joins work much faster than subquery. So execute this. It took 1 second. It is also taking 1 second. So that is a common notion. You know, joins work much faster than subquery. Look at this subquery retrieve the same number of records or rows, 89,271. Sometimes it takes 1 second, or sometimes it takes 2 seconds. So in the performance basis, we can say that joins works much better than subqueries. And look at the join, but before that, make sure we delete the cache. So once again, go to the cache deletions. So delete the cache. Okay. And run this. This is the query using join. Look at that. So execute this. Look at that. It also took it also took 1 second and retrieved 89,271 rows. Same number of rows. So in this case, you know, the SQL Server is actually generating the same plan. For both the queries. That is why we are getting the same result. Okay, now instead of going by theory, now instead of going by theory, okay, somebody says joins are much better than subqueries. Instead of simply going by that theory, in fact, we should actually be testing queries for performance and then tuning them as needed. Okay, so I would say rather than going by this theory, you know, that joins are much better than subquery. Turn on turn on client statistics and execution plan to see the performance of each options for ourselves, and then let's make a decision. So how do we turn on the client statistics and execution plan? It is very easy to do. In SQL Server Management Studio, all you have to do is look at this button. This is called, when you click on this button, it is going to include the client statistics. And there is another button. There is another button here. Include actual execution plan. When I click that button, I'm going to get the actual execution plan as well. So now if I execute this query, for example, so now when I execute this query, for example, the query that is making use of subquery, I get the result. So execute this. I get the result. And then I should also get the execution plan and client statistics. So there is the execution plan. And client statistics. Okay. Now how to read this client statistics and execution plan, and then make a decision. We will talk about this in a later video sessions. Okay. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.